Hi, this is James Hammond, the brand doctor. Just before Christmas, I met up with my friend and business colleague, Adrianne Carter. Adrianne is managing director of Decoded, and she is known as the Face Whisperer. Adrianne works with major brands including Tesco, Unilever, Disney, Coca-Cola, and many more in the field of market research. But she goes way beyond the typical spoken, rationalised boundaries of market research that we come across every day to provide clients with vital insights using her specialised technique of facial detection to reveal where and when research participants and respondents are not telling the truth about the answers they're giving. Now, Adrianne knows that I'm not a great fan of most market research anyway, particularly the self-reports and questionnaire type. But her work really does add an amazing opportunity for clients to find out how people genuinely feel about new and existing products and services. She's a very, very interesting lady. So I recorded this interview in a very loud and busy hotel in London, so please forgive the less than perfect sound quality. But I'm sure that Adrianne's explanation of her truly fascinating work will more than make up for it. So here's the interview. Enjoy. Okay, so Adrianne, let's start with what I consider to be a thorny subject, and that's market research. It seems to me that a lot of the time market research results are very inaccurate and sometimes completely counterproductive. What's the reason behind that?
There are a few reasons actually, James. There could be issues with the interviewer. So the interviewer may be in a bit of a rush, works for lots of different companies, so she'll perhaps shorten the question to make it a bit more user-friendly for her to speed through her results. She might actually pre-code what the respondent says. So if they say, the respondent may say, actually, I go to this store because it's convenient, it's on my way home from work. She might just write down convenience. But actually, there's another vital piece of information there that isn't just convenient, it's on her way home from work. So what we find is that some field interviewers don't actually care or really interested in the results. It's just more like a tick box exercise. Right. Get done, get as quickly as possible. And also there's lots of information that the respondent will give to us openly and willingly if we just ask the right questions. And that doesn't mean asking questions that lead the respondent, but it's asking them in a way that gets them to open up, because lots of questions are just asked as a question without any thought to, how do we want the respondent to feel when they're talking about this subject? Is it just another boring question after question, or do we get the respondent engaged in finding out what we want to know from them?
Right. Is there also an element that the respondent would actually tell lies in answer to the questions?
Yeah, respondents absolutely do lie. I don't like to say the word lies, though. I call it more of a generalisation or a rationalisation, because they're not lying to deceive. They're lying just because they don't know the real answer, but they want to give an answer because as humans, we're programmed. Someone asks us a question, we want to give a good answer on the whole. So that's what happens in lots of research projects. The interviewer will ask a question, and if the respondent doesn't know, occasionally they'll just say, I don't know, because they can't be bothered to engage their brains. So that's our job as researchers, to get the respondent to engage their brains and give us an answer. But they'll also give an answer just because they want to please the person doing the research. It's called the Hawthorne effect, where the respondent wants to please the interviewer because, it might be a nice young man and an older lady, and he reminds her of her grandson, so she wants to help him do his job. So she'll give an answer that she thinks, oh, that sounds good, when actually it's a complete and utter lie, but she doesn't done it on purpose. She's just done it to try and please the interviewer. So we need to be really careful of lots of different effects in research, because that answer that she's been really happy to give isn't the truth and doesn't help the company do what they need to do.
Right. So it's more of, in some sense, I guess, an automatic brain processing rather than out and out, well, I think I'll just tell a lie here, because of other factors? Or
Absolutely, yeah. It's just what we do as humans, and it's understanding the psychology of humans and how we think and feel and act and react that needs to be taken into consideration more. So, just sending out an interviewer blindly with a set of questions and expecting to come back with some really deep, meaningful knowledge is actually the really wrong way to go about it.
Right. Tell us then about this amazing work that you do as the Face Whisperer.
Okay, thank you. So I started in market research 20 years ago and got very disillusioned after the first few years because insights weren't really valued, and if it was out of script or out of the project brief, nobody was interested in it. And actually, it was very much the case of we don't yet know what we don't yet know. So I thought research could be so much better, but there wasn't many people actually interested in finding a way to do it better. I was introduced to NLP by someone I knew, and I'm not a proponent of NLP, but I do think there are some interesting uses for it. Not everything, but for me, it showed me that there were tools out there to help understand communication more. So it really opened my eyes that there is more to communication than just what we take on face value, and that we can go deeper. I then found information on the face and how we express emotion, so Dr. Ekman's work. Decided to go and train with Dr. Erica Rosenberg in California 7 years ago, just because I was interested. And there was no master plan attached to that. It was an area of interest for me. At school, I wasn't a great learner. It didn't really do much for me. But since I've left school and formal education, I actually love learning. So it was just a case of, that looks interesting to learn. But actually, it's been a masterstroke of genius, really, because it unlocks so much information.
Right. So tell us about this facial recognition approach. What are you looking for? What is it telling you?
Well, there are 7 universal emotions that we display on the face. What that means is whether you are born in Birmingham, whether you are born in Beirut, or even born blind, we all display the 7 emotions exactly the same. So the triggers will be different for all of us, but the way we show it on our face is the same. So we can look for reliable information for anger, fear, disgust, sadness, contempt, happiness and surprise. I don't think I repeated one there. And that gives us a basis to form actual real results from, because if someone says, I really like that, but they show a facial expression of sadness, and the tone of voice also didn't really sound like I really like that, we've got so much more information. So we do research projects, we always film the face, and we always have the tone of voice and the actual words that the person says, because that we get so much more information than just relying on a written down response that has probably been pre-coded by the interviewer.
Right. Now, obviously, with all of the training that you've had, this is a very specific thing that you need to be aware of. Is these kinds of facial expressions that display these various emotions something that the average person can easily pick up on? I guess the answer has got to be no, because otherwise you wouldn't need all the training. But are they sort of plain to see, as it were, or are you looking for some very, very sort of micro parts of that tell you the real story?
So the answer is actually both. We do all pick up people's facial expressions all the time. We just don't know we do. So I could reliably go out to a member of the public now and get them to judge people's faces, and they'd be probably not bad, because we do it innately all the time. We judge whether someone's happy or sad. We just don't know and have the scientific terms that I have to put a label on it. So there are micro expressions where I will see a muscle movement in the face and know that that relates to a certain emotion that perhaps Mr. Average Joe Public wouldn't know. But he would get a feeling and he would get an emotion overall picture. He might not be able to put a label on it, but he would know whether someone was positive or negative. So I've gone into the muscles, the 43 muscles of the face, and how they all interact with each other. So I've got that deeper level of knowledge. But as humans, we can look out for certain things. So contempt's the one I say to people. It's really easy to spot, actually. It's always on one side of the face, and it's kind of a lip curl upwards, but only on one side of the face. And it can look like a half smile. So when you see that, you know that's contempt, because that's the only emotion that does that muscle movement.
Right. So when we're looking at typical market research approaches, for example, the self-report side of things, which I think we're very much aware that they're inherently flawed, but also focus groups, hall tests, things like that. Where does your expertise fit into that?
Okay, so self-reporting is very, very bad to rely on, because we don't always know how we really feel, because who of us, when we're ticking at these boxes or online completing these questionnaires, actually really sits and cares about the answers? It's just a means to an end, because we're probably getting a voucher and we're probably going to be entered to a competition. So tick, 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 without any thought. There will be very few people who respond in a thoughtful, truthful way, because we don't always know. I capture myself pulling facial expressions, thinking, oh, I didn't know I actually really felt like that. Oh, I must feel like that. But only because of my knowledge that do I probably overanalyse a little bit too much myself and how I feel about things. But as normal people, we don't do that. We don't think, how do I really feel about that? What did my facial expression just say? But it is a source of information if we do learn to notice it. Focus groups, we will only as a business ever do focus groups if they are in the right frame of setting. So if we're talking about a shopping experience, we take the people, the respondents, back to the store and we get them back in that experience. Because if we don't, and we talk to them 2 weeks later about the shopping experience in a focus group, they won't remember what they did. You know, we can't remember. We have so much information bombarding our brains, we can't remember what we did. So we'll give rationalised answers or lies, as you referred to it earlier. But one of the ways that we also do focus groups is we film the interactions. So, and we, you know, we sit in the focus groups and we don't moderate, but we watch what people's facial expressions are doing. So you've all heard of Gobby 1 and Gobby 2 in the focus group who take over. Actually, what are the other people's faces saying that they're not verbalising? They've probably got some really useful information, but Gobby 1 and Gobby 2 have taken over. So it's our job as researchers who understand the face to say, you weren't too sure about that project. Would you like to tell us what you think and why you weren't too sure about, you know, what you've just seen or heard?
Right.
Hall tests, again, that can be for taste tests. Instead of just writing down the person liked it, he gave a score out of 7 out of 10, we actually can read the facial expression. Did they really like it or did they not? So I've got loads of video examples where the respondent will say one thing, but their face will say a completely different story. And even members of the public, when I show these videos, I stop and say, what score out of 10 do you think this person is going to give to this product? They'll say, oh, 2 or 3 based on what they've seen. But the person will say, the respondent will say 7 out of 10. So everyone can see the mismatch with what people say and how they really feel.
Right. It sounds absolutely fascinating. So give us some real-life examples of how you've incorporated this into work that you've done for your clients.
So I've done a lot of work, shopper and consumer research. So this is maybe a project we've just been working on is for health food products in one of the major retailers, one of the top 4, understanding what shoppers really see and what sticks in their memory and sticks in their brain and what cues in aisle could help them cut through in aisle as a brand. So we did a piece of work, so we got a bench line of behaviour, perceptions, emotions, what people really do in aisle. And then we put some POS in aisle. And then we got the reactions of shoppers, same measurement tools. How has it changed the behaviour? And actually it did. It changed in this category, in the health food category. Actually, shoppers were more open to information. So the information was put in, actually got read and did create some cut through. Now, I wouldn't say that works for every category because I've worked in practically every category in store. And POS with information on doesn't work for every category.
That's point of sale.
Point of sale,
yeah.
Sorry. It doesn't work for every category, but if you get it in the right category, it can actually really help brand awareness and perception and conversion, most importantly.
Right.
I also did a project for a drinks manufacturer who are releasing a premium product into the mixer market, and had the very enjoyable task of going around 20 bars in central London and measuring the emotional reaction of consumers. So training was given to the bartenders to make this perfect drink with this perfect mixer. So 10 bars had the mixer, 10 bars didn't, all premium. And then the emotional measurements of consumers to how they react to the mixer, how the barman implements his training, and what makes the perfect experience for a consumer and emotionally engages them. Because if we emotionally engage consumers, we get them to spend more and we get them to return, which all means profit. So it was really interesting project, and plus I had to drink a lot of gin and tonic, so it can't be bad.
You mentioned to me one time before about, if you like, being a secret advisor to someone. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I've worked for some of my clients where I've sat in their meetings. So for one of my clients, I'm not going to name any names, as you will understand, where they've had negotiation meetings or category vision meetings with their one of their retail partners, one of the big four, and I've sat in the meeting as a facilitator. But what I'm really doing is analysing the reaction to the message from my client and guiding the meeting, so steering away from products where I can see there's tension or there's perhaps not as agreement as my client would like. But then when there are areas that they're negotiating with the retailer that the retailer does like, actually we focus on that area more, because that's where we're getting their engagement. So a case in point is I was in a meeting, and all I'm going to say is it was sweet treats category vision. I'm not saying any more than that. But the buyer was very, very anti-healthy cake. And my client had gone to him with the idea of trying to get listings for this healthy cake. But this is never going to fly in this retailer while that buyer is in position, because he doesn't want healthy cake in his aisle. So I focused and helped the meeting steer away from the healthy aspect and made it more to actually not quite as bad for you, or a little bit less sugar. So because if he decides that product's not going in, he has control of that retailer to say whether it goes in or not. So by just maybe helping the message being more palatable to him, we get a listing. My client gets a listing.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for covering such a fascinating subject, which I think in 2018 is going to become a crucial factor in any kind of market research. So I have a feeling that this is just the first part of many parts of the interviews that we can have together on this amazing subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James.